All right. So we are going to start with today's session. Let's have a little chat about what we did yesterday. So yesterday we discussed about variables. We discussed about data types. Majorly, we discussed about strings. We also got to know that numeric data types are of three kinds in Python, which are int, float, and complex. Now we are very well aware about what these things are, how to declare them, and how to use them in programming. So when we ended yesterday's session, we were discussing about strings, and we are going to very well start from here as well. Today we will be discussing what is concatenation in Python with respect to string. We will be discussing about Boolean data type, and we will also see what casting is. If time allows, we will get an introduction to what data structures are, and we'll also tend to complete everything there is with regards to data structure. Okay, so this is what we did yesterday, and this is what we are going to do today. Before we dive into concatenation and everything else, yesterday I put forth a question which was regarding to variable naming conventions. Let me just make the spelling correct. Yes, variable naming conventions. So I told you in our conversation, a thing came up that while declaring variables in Python and in any language, there are some rules that should be followed. I mentioned two of them, that the variable should not contain space and the only special character allowed is underscore. And I gave it as a task to find out the other two naming conventions. So can you guys please mention what are the two naming conventions that I did not tell you guys about? You can also mention four of them, but if you know the other two, you can mention those as well. Yes. Avoid single alphabets. But it is possible to use, yeah, these are conventions that we should keep in mind, and it is healthy practice that a variable name should reflect what value it is storing. But still, we can declare variable names with a single alphabet. It is possible. However, if a variable name, like Paras has wrote a very nice comment regarding to all the important points. So, a variable name should start with an alphabet or with a underscore character only. It should not start with a digit. Okay. So I'm going to mention not start with a digit. Then we already know that it cannot contain spaces. Then it cannot be a keyword. So what are keyword? I guess you all know that a keyword is a reserved word in any language which has a special meaning. So just like that, Python has keywords. One such keyword is for, while, that we will be using to declare for loops and while loops. And no special character is allowed except underscore. All right. So these are four major things. I'm saying that these are four key points that you should keep in mind while declaring a variable name. All right. So with this, we are going to further dive into today's session. And thanks, Paras, for your comment. So let's start with concatenation. So what do we mean by concatenation? It simply means joining two things together. And you can basically perform concatenation on various objects, but generally, whenever I think of concatenation, strings pop up in my mind. So we are going to see how to perform concatenation on string. Let's say I declare two strings. So one is str1, and I'm going to call it good, and there is another string that is str2, and let's say that this is morning. If I want to join these two strings, then I can very easily join these two by using a plus operator. And this is one simple thing that we call concatenation. All right, if I want to join another string along with it, I can either store it inside a separate third variable, or I can, as it is, add it along directly by declaring it inside inverted commas. So good morning all, and here we have our concatenated string. It is as simple as that. Now this plus operator that I have used to concatenate, what if I use it along with a string and an integer value? So we all know that integer is something, basically it is a number. It could be a negative number, a positive number, or it could be zero. So what happens if I try to concatenate integer with a string? So let's concatenate good with any integer, that is 4. So when you try to do this, you get a very commonly found error, that is the type error, and it says can only concatenate string to string, not int. Why is it so? Because these two data types, they are incompatible with one another, and you cannot concatenate a string with another integer. Okay, it is simply not possible. However, if you still want to concatenate 4, it is quite simple. You can simply mention 4 but as a string, and these two things can be concatenated with one another. All right. If this is understandable to everyone, please give me a thumbs up so that I know you guys have a clue what concatenation is. Okay. Also, yesterday I mentioned that string has various functions and every object is going to have many functions associated with it. It is not possible to discuss all of them, so I gave it as homework that you guys can explore those functions. Some of them are very commonly used, such as the lower function, upper function, then there is a strip function. So if you haven't still explored those functions on your own, I would say that please do it in the meantime. And it is going to be a task for all the objects that we discuss and study about, that you have to explore their functions on your own. Obviously, I'll be teaching some of them, and if you have doubts related to any of those, you can simply ping me a chat and you can discuss them with me. Okay, moving on. The next concept that we are going to explore today is format strings. Okay, so what do we mean by format strings? Basically, the major concept around format string is that just here we discussed it is not possible to concatenate a string along with an integer. However, with the concept of format string, we can make it happen. So let's see how a string can be formatted and how we can use it in programming. So for that, what I'm going to use, I'm going to declare two variables. I would say that place, and let's say work. All right. Now, what I'm going to do, I am going to declare another string, a third string, and I would say that this is my sentence. And in this sentence, I'm going to mention that, hi, I am Vanchika. And what I want to do, I want to append. I am repeating again. I want to append or concatenate these two strings right here with this third one. And there are various ways to do this. One we have already explored, that I can simply use this plus operator and concatenate them together. But let's explore how we can do this with help of format strings. So hi, I'm Vanchika. I work at, and I'm leaving this space as it is. I'll add something to it and I'll tell you how to add a placeholder. So I work at, and I'm going to add a placeholder for, sorry, the company, and I live in, and here I'm going to add a placeholder for the workplace. So what I'm going to do, I want to append Noida here and I want to append Inzint here. You can see that this is not quite similar to what we did with concatenation using plus operator, because concatenation using plus operator was adding the value at the end only. But here I want to add it one at the end, and you can see at the end and here after just before this full stop. So what I can do, I can introduce these curly brackets, and these curly brackets, they stand as a placeholder. Okay. Now finally, I am using the format function to format my string. So sentence dot format, which means format the string, that is sentence. And inside the function, you are going to pass the arguments. So what the arguments are? Firstly, I want to put this string here. And secondly, I want to put the string place here. So in so sequence, you can mention that please place the value of work string wherever you find the first placeholder. And after that, put the value of the second string wherever you find the second placeholder. This is done sequentially. When I run it, you can see that I have very nicely formatted my string. Hi, I'm Vanshika. I work at Inzint and I live in Noida. All right. I'm going to repeat how I did it once again. So formatting strings means adding an already existing string to another string, and you can do so by putting placeholders in your main string. So wherever the placeholders are encountered, then and there your values will get placed. Your values will be uh, like added to the main string. And this works sequentially, which means if I change the sequence, I put place first and then work. So you can see that now the sequence is changed. I work at Noida, I live in Inzint. Please give me a thumbs up if you guys get an idea on how to format your string using the format function. All right. Okay. Now let's say I want to use the function in this manner, but still I want to put the values. I want that the values, they get added at the right place. So how can I edit my placeholders in such a way that these values, they get copied correctly? So to do that, what I'm going to do, we have this sentence right here. Let me just use it again. And here I'm going to mention. So I can provide indexes to these placeholder. What I want to do, I want that the value of this variable, it gets assigned here, and the value of work variable, it gets added here. So this is how I can use index number, and in this way, no matter what my sequence is inside the format function of the variables, it is going to see where the first placeholder is present and assign the, put the value there. And then it is going to find where the second placeholder is present and put the value there. So let's see if it is working or not. Hi, I'm Vanchika. I work at Inzint and I live in Noida. So despite the uh, sequence, my values of the string, they get placed correctly because I used the concept of indexing. All right. So please give me a thumbs up if everything till here is understandable to all of you. we are going to use curly brackets as placeholder only, nothing else. All right. So moving on, this was all that was majorly concerned with strings. And before we move to Boolean data type, I am going to talk about a concept that is called casting. So just give me a moment, guys. All right, sorry, I forgot to mention one thing. Earlier, when I described format strings to you, I also said that with the help of format string, it is possible to concatenate an integer value with a string value. So let's see how we can do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to declare three variables and A, B, C, and I'm going to assign values to them. So 20, 10, and 30. And in this manner also, you can declare variables in Python. Earlier, we were declaring them in separate lines, like so. But if you want to declare variables in one single line, it is possible. And if you do this, then the sequential assignment of values take place. 10 is assigned to A, 20 is assigned to B, and 30 is assigned to C. All right. So now you very well know that all these values are integer. And if you want to confirm, you can check the type as well. So yes, I know that all these values A, B, and C, they are of integer data type. Let me construct a string. So I'm going to construct another string. Let's say it is info. And here I'm going to mention that, let's say, firstly, I'll mention, and these may be the quantities of apples, the quantities of bananas, and maybe the quantity of cherries. All right. And again, I'm using the same function, that is info.format, and I want to format these values with my main string. So this is possible. What happened? The concept is same. I put placeholders where I want to concatenate the values, and these values, despite being integers, they got concatenated with my main string. Okay. So in this way, you can use format function. You can either format a string with uh, another string, or you can format a string with any integer value. All right, I believe everything related to format string is now clear to everyone. Just give me a thumbs up so I am good to go and we can move to the next concept. All right. Am I being too fast? Oh, I hope all the
Yeah.
concepts are cleared.
Speed is okay to me. Afan has left a question in chat.
Yeah, I answered it. We are
Okay,
going to use curly brackets only with respect to placeholders.
thanks.
All right, guys. So let's move on towards the next
Oh,
concept that,
sorry once again. Is there a way you can share this notebook with us after the
yes,
session is over?
I dropped the document of the notebook in general chat yesterday as well, and I'll do it today also.
Okay, okay, sure. That will be great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's talk about casting and then we'll move to the last data type, that is Boolean. So what do we mean by casting? Now, for casting also, there are two concepts associated with it. Basically, every data type has a constructor of its own. Okay, and constructor is what? They are used to declare or they are used to initialize objects. And that's why they are known as constructor. So every data type in Python has a constructor of its own, which means you can use a constructor to initialize or to declare an object of that data type. They are quite similar to functions. Now, what can we do? What we can achieve with the help of any constructor of any data type? So we can use these constructors to either specify the data type of any value. And the second thing that can be achieved with this constructor is that we can change the data type of any variable. Okay. And this concept is known as casting, where we convert one object of one data type to another. So let's see how we can do that. Let's say this is my value and I have written 4 here. As of now, we don't know any specification whether this is an integer or whether this is a string. Obviously, we as programmers, we know that until and unless it is in inverted commas, it will be considered as an integer, right? We also have the availability of type function and we can check that. But let's say I want to specify it that this 4 here is an integer only and nothing else. So what we can do, we can wrap it inside a constructor of int. And now I have specified that this 4, it is of type integer only. All right, in this way, you can use constructor to specify the data type of any value or any variable. Let's see how we can change the data type of any variable. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to declare a number. Let's say the number is 4. And we very well know that this number is of type integer. Let me declare a string as well. So I have declared a string, let's say fruit, and the fruit is cherries. And we very well know that the type of this variable is string. Okay. Now, if I try to concatenate these two things together, you very well know that this is going to result into an error. And we know because these two data types are not compatible together. So, which means that if I convert this variable into a string, then it is possible to concatenate these two variables together, right? We know that. So let's use casting to convert this number variable into a string. So what you can do, simply put it inside a string constructor, and now 4 has been converted into a string. And since it is a string now, you can concatenate it with another string. If you want to put a space between these two, well, you can put it. All right. So this is how you can convert any data type to another data type with the help of casting. So let's explore some values and let's see how we can cast one data type to another. So here I have this float value and I would like to convert it into integer. So I get an integer value that is 4. Let's convert the same value into a string. So now this is a string. You can see that it is in inverted commas. Above, I declared a string that is fruit. Let's convert it into an integer. When I try to convert a string into an integer, I get a value error. It says invalid literal for int with base 10. What is a literal? Literal is a constant value. All right. And it says that this value, it, it is not possible to convert it into an integer. And that is quite possible. Words can never be integer. So you cannot basically do the impossible here, but it is possible to convert integer into string, float into string, float to integer, and everything else is possible. Okay. But if you are saying that you could convert a string into an integer, that is not possible. All right. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if casting is clear to everyone? Okay. Very well. With this, we are going to discuss the final data type, that is Boolean. And it is one of the easiest data type, has two values associated with it. One is true, another one is false. Keep in mind that while declaring true or false, you have to make T capital and F capital. So if there is a variable that I have and it contains any of these values, the type is going to be bool. Okay. Now, what is the significance of this Boolean data type? Basically, whenever you are comparing two values or you are matching two values, the result is going to be a Boolean value for that. If I want to compare whether this 4 is greater than 5 or not, then the result which I will get by after performing the comparison will be a Boolean value. This gives me false. If I check for equality, for checking equality, we use double equals to operator. Okay. So if I am checking for equality, it is going to return a Boolean value if both of the values are same. If the values are different, it will generate false as a result. All right. So these operations where you are checking comparison between two values, they will always result into a Boolean value. Yes, Shivam, I'll explain casting once again. So Shivam has commented regarding that he has some doubts with casting, and I'm going to reiterate what I said with respect to casting. Okay, so casting is basically used for two purposes. Not casting, the constructor for every data type is used for two purposes. That is to specify the data type of any value or to change the data type of any variable to another. And this concept, it is called casting. Okay. So what I have done to demonstrate casting is that I have declared an integer variable and I have also declared a string variable. When we perform the concatenation of the two, we got a type error because these two variables are not compatible and string can be concatenated with string only. All right. So in order to make this happen, I converted the number or the integer data type that I had to string. So I'm going to write it separately as well. This is my value and it has now been converted to string. If you don't want to use it directly, you can very well store it in a variable. So I'm storing number in the same variable. Let's run the cell. And now instead of this, you can mention the variable name. Because I here have changed the data type of number variable and then reassigned it to the same variable name. So it is possible for me to concatenate both of them together. So just like string and int, every other data type also has their own constructor and you guys can explore the you can put different values inside a constructor of any data type and you can explore what result you get. I believe it is clear now, Shivam.
Sure, Banska, but I'm telling if we take string as number and after that I want to convert string into integer.
No, that is not possible. See, we did try to do it. We cannot
But
convert
yes, but I want to take a number as a string and we can use
Mhm.
any built-in function in Python.
To convert it into integer.
Yes, as string like as
See,
bit yes like as
yes.
Vijay commented. Can we convert
Okay,
it into integer?
let me just say it once again what I understood from your part. So you are saying that is it possible to convert a string into integer with base 10? Yes, it is possible. Yes, this is possible. Okay, if the if the string is number itself, then you can convert it into an integer. But if those are characters, words, or special characters, you cannot do so.
Yes.
Okay, and if you
Thank you.
still feel that you want to convert the characters into a number, all right. I am saying once again that this is a character that is F, and you want it to be represented by a number, then I hope that you guys aware of ASCII codes? Can you please give me a thumbs up if you know about ASCII codes? Okay, so these are basically numbers associated with special characters, alphabets, and all. So we have a function for that. I guess it is, let me just see. Okay, ASCII CHR, I guess. String object cannot be. All right, just give me a moment. Yes, the function is ORD. Thank you, Hardik. Okay, it is ORD. And if you have a string and you want it to be represented by a number, then you can use this ORD function and it is going to return the associated ASCII code with it. Okay, so this is not a conversion to integer, but if you want your string to be represented by an integer, then ORD is the function. All right. Okay, shall we move on? Please give me a thumbs up if we can proceed further. Okay, so we were discussing about bool, and this is all that is with respect to Boolean data type. Uh, One more thing that I would like to mention here is that bool also has its own constructor. Okay, and if you put any value inside it, okay, it is going to result to true. Okay, any value. If I put integer, I'll get true. If I put a floating number, I'll get true. Okay, but for two values, it is going to return false. If the string, if you provide a string and it is an empty string, and if you provide an integer value and it is 0. In such cases, it is going to return to false. Otherwise, the constructor will return true always. Okay. So with this, we are done with all the data types. We got an introduction about how many data types are there and how to declare them, how to perform some basic operations on them. One thing that you guys have to do is that you have to see what all operations you can perform with the terms to these operators: plus, minus, multiplication, and divide, and modulus. Okay, these are some basic mathematical operators, and I would like you guys to explore these operators on integer value, float value, complex number, and string values. Okay, obviously with string you can only use the plus operator, but try. All right, see what you guys get as a result, and you can play with the values, you can play with data types now. Okay, so this is going to be a task for everyone. All right, now we are going to discuss about data structures, but just give me a minute break so that I can have a sip of water and you guys can also relax a bit, and we'll continue with data structures in about a minute. Is that fine for everyone? Just give me a thumbs up if it is okay. All right. All right. Is everyone present here? Please react with a thumbs up once again so that we can proceed. All right. So let's talk about data structures. Now, data structures are basically used to organize data efficiently. All right. They facilitate ease of access. Okay. So I want to organize my data and I want it to be organized in such a manner that I can easily access every value. So I can use data structures for that matter. Every language has data structures associated with it. You guys may have heard about linked list, stacks, and queues. So these are very basic data structures. But when we talk about Python, it has provided some collection data types. Okay. And they are commonly called data structures of Python. And these data types, they allow you to store multiple values altogether. So up until now, we were using one variable, and for that variable, we were assigning one value only. But with the help of these data structures that are associated with Python, we can store a collection of data values in such a way that it can be organized according to our need, and we can easily access each and every value with the help of indexing. All right. So when we talk about how many such data types are available to us, we have four. We have list, we have tuples. These are also pronounced as tuples by some people. You can use any pronunciation that you like. And we also have dictionaries, and we have set, and there is something also known as frozen set. Okay, frozen set is an extension of set only. So you can majorly say that there are four of such collectible data types: list, tuples, dictionary, and set. Okay. When we talk about list and tuples, they also come under the category of sequence data types. What are sequence data type? Just like string is a sequence data type, which is a sequence of alphanumeric characters. In such a way, list and tuples are also sequence data types. Dictionary is also called as a mapping data type. What do we mean by mapping? One value associated with another. So in dictionary, the values are stored in a manner that a key has an assigned value to it. Okay, we'll talk about it in detail later. And set is simply known as set, and they are quite similar to the sets that you have studied in mathematics, but they are also unique. And we are going to discuss what is unique for the sets that Python provides us. All right, so this was a brief description of what all data structures we are going to study now. Okay, so let's start with list. Now, what is a list? It is simply a collection of values, and they are declared using square brackets. Now, when I say that all of them, they are collection data types of Python, I also mean that they too have their own constructors. Just like int, string, bool, float, complex, every one of them had their constructor, and we have discussed few of them uh, in the demonstration. Similarly, list, tuples, dictionary, set, they also have a constructor. Okay. So you can construct list in two ways. Either you can use the list constructor or you can simply use square brackets. Okay. So let's see what all values can be put inside a list. I am first using the list constructor to construct a list, and inside it, I am using the square brackets. So these are the values that I have put inside the list constructor, and I want my list to be declared using these values. As of now, all of them are integer. Okay. So let's store it inside a variable, and I have used the variable name nums, and this is a Python list. If you check the data type, you see that this is a list in Python. But very seldom you will see that someone has used the list constructor to construct a list. You can directly use the square brackets and you can put all the elements that you want inside this list. When you look at a list, in first instance, your thought is that they look like arrays. All right. But they are very different from arrays in many aspects. So one major difference between array and list is that array, I'm going to mention here, arrays are homogeneous collections and list is a heterogeneous collection. Okay. Which means that arrays are going to contain values of same data type only, whereas list can contain values of different data types, which means I can put integers, I can put string value, I can put a complex number here and a floating number and a Boolean value and also a list another inside a list. And I can further declare another list here. Okay. So how many values are present inside the list now? We have integers, we have string, we have complex float, we have Boolean, we have one list. Inside this list, there is also another list. Okay. This concept is called nested list. Okay. Nested sequence, which means inside a list, there is another list present. Okay. So in this manner, you can create as many lists as you like. Okay, you can create a hierarchy of list inside a list. Never an error is going to occur. Okay. So when we talk about heterogeneity, we mean that we can store elements of different data types inside list. Okay. And let's call it elements. And this is the list that we have for us. All right. Now, it does not mean that always you can use elements of different data types. If you want it to be homogeneous, if you want it to only contain integers or string, that too is possible. Okay, we have seen it. So there is no bar to it. It totally depends upon the situation and the criteria. All right, so you can declare lists using square brackets and you can insert any element inside them. Okay, now let's talk about few of the concepts that we discussed when we were talking about strings. So these concepts are indexing, slicing, and immutability. Can you guys recall whether strings are immutable or mutable? Yes. When we discussed strings, we talked about this concept immutability. Can you tell me whether strings are mutable or immutable? Yes, because Sir and Shivam has rightly replied that strings are immutable. They cannot be changed once assigned. So we are going to figure out whether lists are also similar kind of objects or not, and whether these two operations can be performed on lists. Now, let's start with indexing. So we have this list that is elements, and we are going to use the concept of indexing on it. When I say indexing, it is similar to how it was done in strings, which means that index numbers start from 0. So the first element has index number 0. The last element, and when I say last element, this whole list is the last element. Okay. 6 here is not the last element. This whole list is the last element because this is one single object. Okay. The last element has the index number length minus 1. Just like strings, negative indexing is also possible, which means by the means of negative indexing, the last object, the last element will get the index number as minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, and so on. Okay. So both kind of indexing, be it positive or negative, they are possible. Okay. So let's access a few elements. I want my first element to be accessed. and I get 4. Let's access the last element. So in order to access the last element, I should know the length of my list. I can either count it, but I don't want to do it, so I'm going to calculate the length. We saw a function len, which can be used to calculate the length. So here I'm going to use the same function for list as well. We used it for strings earlier. Let's specify the variable name of the list. And I know that if I subtract 1 from it, I'll reach to my last index number. See, I got my whole list as the last element because this whole list, it is one single object. Now, let me just check what is the length of the string once. Sorry, length of the list. So it is 8, right? So by now we have understood how to index out all the elements of the list. But here one thing might arise in mind. What if I want to access this list? Now please observe carefully. Elements is this. It contains a nested list inside it, which is this one at the last index. And the last list, it also contains yet another list inside it. Let's say I want to access this list, how I can do it. So we very well know that at -1 index, I have the last list present. Now, since I got this list and I know that this object, it can be indexed, so I can further index it till I receive the last element. All right. So when I got this as output, I can use another set of brackets and I can index it further. So if I use 0 here, I'll get first element out of this list. I got 3, which means if I want to get this list, I can use the index number. So it is present at what? -1, -2 index number. You can use any index number, be it negative, positive. You can use negative and positive index numbers in combination, totally depend upon you. So -2 gives me the last list. Let's extract 5, this element from this list. So I can use another set of brackets and this 5 is present on 0, 1, 2. So it gives me the element that is stored inside this list, basically this element. Okay. Is there a way to check if a variable or object is indexable or not? No, there is no function of that sort which can tell you whether this element is indexable or not. If you try to index it and you get an error, that is a way to check whether it is indexable or not. Okay, lists are indexable, strings are indexable. We will explore these 3 concepts with related to every data structure. But yes, there is no function that can tell you whether you can index it or not. All right. Okay. So what I was trying to say is that if inside your list there is any element that can support indexing, then you can index it further. Just like we have indexed this list, you can also index this string and receive every one single character of it separately. So let's do it as well. Elements, and I guess it is present at third position. And here I want to extract n. So at -2, I'll find n. Okay. Can you please give me a thumbs up if you get how indexing can be performed? It is quite similar to how we did it in strings, but please give me a thumbs up if you understand it. Thanks, everyone. All right. Now, since this object list, it can be indexed, then it can also be sliced. Okay. So I'm going to leave slicing to you guys. You have to perform slicing. The concept is same. You have to write the variable name. You have to write a start index, a stop index, and a step value. You can use any index numbers, positive, negative. Just keep in mind that By default, the step count is 1, which means that the direction of slicing is going to be from left to right, and every consecutive element will be sliced. Okay. And if the step count is -1, then the slicing will be from right to left. Okay. Please keep in mind the direction. And every consecutive element will be sliced in that manner. Okay. If it is -2, then right to left direction, and every alternative element will be sliced. If it is -3, right to left, but two elements will be skipped at once. Okay. So this is homework. You have to explore slicing with respect to list. Now, indexing is done, slicing is a homework. Let's come to the third concept, which was immutability. Okay. So it's quite easy to see if something is immutable or mutable. And we are going to access the first element and we will try to convert it. Okay, we'll try to change it. I am going to replace it with 5,000. No error has occurred. And if I check the list, the original value, which was 4, it has been replaced, which means lists are mutable. All right. So we know that lists are mutable now, which means we can basically change any element once, even after we have declared a list. Lists can be sliced and lists can be installed. Now let's check for one more thing as well, that is called duplicacy. It simply means whether duplicate elements can be put inside a list or not. So I'm going to declare a list and I'll put some duplicate elements inside it. And I get no error, which means that duplicacy is also supported by list. We know that the length of the list can be received by using the length function. And I guess everything with respect to list is covered now, the basics of list, that is. Let me just check if I forgot anything. Yes. All right. So the basics of list is done. Now, just before, okay, there is a comment. Let me just check it. Okay. Uh, Afan, I guess I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He says that he found out that we can check whether a list is indexable or not using isInstance function. Uh, According to me, the isInstance function, it is used to check whether something is an instance, whether an object is an instance of some class or not. But if you are saying that it can also be used to check whether it is indexable, then I'll have a look into it and I'll let you guys know if it is possible. All right?
No, Sita. I meant that we can check if an object is an instance of list and which is
Mm-hmm.
indexable. List is indexable. I didn't say is instance is to check if it's indexable or not.
No, sorry. I was saying that according to my knowledge, I thought that this function was used only for that purpose. If it can be used for indexing also, I'll see and
No, I
I'll refresh my
think
concepts.
you got me wrong.
Okay.
What I said is this function is for checking if an object is an instance of list or not, like
Okay,
instance
okay.
instance of something. And
Okay,
if
okay,
it's
okay,
an
okay.
list, it's indexable. You can find like that way.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay, which mean like you are saying that it can check whether it is an instance of list, and if it is list, then it is indexable. Am I right now?
Yes, right.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, guys. So let's explore three functions with respect to list before we end today's session, and these functions are quite important. So we have insert, append, and extend. Okay. Firstly, I'll take you through append and extend, and then insert. You guys can explore on your own. It is like, as the name suggests, will be used to insert any element inside a list. Since we know that lists are mutable, we can change their length. Their length is variable. You can add elements at any place, at wherever you like. You can replace the elements, and all of such things, they are possible. Let's explore these two functions, which are append and extend. So both of these functions, they are used to join two lists together. All right. So let's declare two lists. I have list 1, 2, 3. These are the elements. And I have list 2, 4, 5, 6. These are the elements. Okay. So firstly, I'm going to use plus operator between these two lists. And when I do that, you can see that I get a third list which contains element from both of the lists. Okay. 1, 2, 3 from L1, 4, 5, 6 from L2. But if I check L1 and if I check L2, these lists, they are not changed. Okay. They are still the original, which means that the plus operator has not changed the existing list, the original list. It has just created a third list using these elements. All right. So this is one way to join the elements of two lists together and form a third list. All right. Let's see what the append function can do. So L1 dot, and if you press tab, you will get a list of all the functions. I'm going to use append. And here I'm going to append it with L2. Okay, append simply means joining. When you run this cell, you do not get any output. But if you check L1, L1 is now changed. You can see that 1, 2, 3, these were the elements of L1, and 4, 5, 6, the elements of L2, they are added as one single list to L1. If you check L2, L2 is still the same. All right. So this is another way to join the elements of two lists together. Now I'm going to redeclare the list so that L1 is reinitialized with the original values. And I'm going to use the extend function. All right. So extend function is going to do the same thing. It is going to combine all the elements of list together. So again, we do not get any output because it has changed L1 altogether. And when you see L1, it contains the elements of L1 along with the elements of L2 added as separate elements. And if you check L2, it is still the same. When you compare both of these functions, you get an idea that they, in a way, perform the same task, which means combining the elements of two list objects together. However, append adds the element of the second list to first list as one single list. Okay. In this resulting list, this element is going to be treated as one single element. This whole list will be treated as one single element and will be assigned one single index number. However, when you do the same using extend, each and every element of the second list, it gets appended as individual element. All of them will have their separate index numbers. All right. Can you give me a thumbs up if you guys understood it? All right. So with this, we are going to end the session today. I am leaving the insert function to you. It is quite simple. I'm also leaving append and extend function to like you guys can explore more with respect to them, whether they can be manipulated further, whether the lists can be changed further using the two functions. One more thing I'm going to add to the homework. You will learn how to remove the element from a list. All right. So there are two functions which can do it, and there is also a keyword which can be used to remove the element from the list. So altogether, there are three ways, okay, three major ways I would say to delete element from a list. You are going to explore those ways and I'll ask about them tomorrow. All right. With this, we are going to end today's session and we'll meet tomorrow. If you guys have any doubts, you can stay and you can discuss your doubts with me. If there is nothing to be discussed, you guys can leave the session. I hope we had a great time and you got the grasp of all the concepts that we discussed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vanshika. It was a great session today.